Picture this. You wake up one morning and realize the world around you has gone mad. People are shouting slogans they don't understand, following trends that defy logic, and attacking anyone who dares to question the chaos. Sound familiar? You're not imagining it. This is mass psychosis, a phenomenon Carl Jung warned could sweep entire societies into a hypnotic trance of irrationality and blind obedience. But here's the good news. You don't have to be swept away. In this video, we'll dive deep into Carl Jung's wisdom to uncover why mass psychosis happens, the 4 stages that pull society into collective madness, and 3 practical steps to protect your mind and escape the crowd's grip. Stick with us until the end, because the final insight could change how you see yourself and the world forever. Let's break free together. Have you ever looked around and felt like the world is losing its grip on reality? People blindly follow trends, repeat slogans without questioning, and cling to ideas that don't add up. This isn't just a bad day. It's a phenomenon Carl Jung called mass psychosis, where entire societies fall into a trance of irrationality, driven by fear, propaganda, and a hunger to belong. In this chapter, we'll dive into what mass psychosis is, why it happens, and how Carl Jung's insights into the collective unconscious explain why even smart people can act like a mindless herd. By understanding this, you'll take the first step to protecting your mind from the chaos. So, what exactly is mass psychosis? Carl Jung described it as a collective mental state where large groups of people lose touch with reason, swept up by shared delusions, emotional hysteria, or manipulative narratives. It's not about individuals being stupid. It's about a psychological force that overrides critical thinking. Think of it like a virus that infects the mind, spreading through fear, groupthink, and the need for certainty in uncertain times. Carl Jung believed this happens when people are disconnected from their inner purpose, leaving them vulnerable to the collective, unconscious, a shared pool of instincts, fears, and archetypes that can hijack entire societies. Let's meet Anna, a 30-year-old office worker who saw this firsthand. During a heated social media debate, Anna noticed her co-workers parroting the same catchy phrases they'd seen online, like "follow the science" or "stay safe," without ever digging into what those phrases meant. When she asked a colleague why they supported a certain policy, they got defensive, unable to explain their stance. Anna felt like she was surrounded by people who weren't thinking for themselves. This is mass psychosis in action, a group mindset where questioning is rare and conformity is king. Carl Jung's insight here is profound. He argued that when individuals lose their sense of meaning, whether through personal crises, kulturell upheval, or spiritual disconnection, they seek identity in the crowd. The collective unconscious, filled with primal fears and desires, takes over, driving people to act in ways that seem irrational to an outsider. For example, during economic panics or cultural wars, people cling to simple narratives that promise safety, even if those narratives defy logic. Carl Jung saw this as the collective shadow, the unacknowledged fears and impulses of a society projected outward, creating chaos. Why does this happen? Fear is the spark. Carl Jung noted that fear, especially when amplified by media or leaders, shuts down critical thinking. In a state of fear, people crave certainty, even if it's false. Think about recent years. News cycles bombarding us with crises, social media amplifying outrage, and slogans reducing complex issues to black and white answers. This environment primes society for mass psychosis. When people feel lost, they'll follow anyone who offers a clear path, no matter how flawed. Let's look at another example. Mark, a 5-year-old teacher, noticed his students blindly adopting trends from social media, like boycotting certain brands or supporting causes without researching them. One student admitted they joined a protest because everyone else was doing it. This is what French philosopher Gustave Le Bon described in his book The Crowd. When people join a group, they lose their sense of responsibility and critical thinking, becoming like emotionally charged children. Carl Jung would agree, adding that this surrender to the crowd is a sign of a psyche cut off from its own center. The collective shadow plays a huge role here. Carl Jung taught that every society has a shadow, its unacknowledged flaws, fears, and desires. When people ignore their personal shadows, their own doubts or insecurities, they project them onto the group, fueling mass psychosis. For example, during a political divide, one side might label the other as evil to avoid facing their own uncertainties. This projection creates a vicious cycle. The more disconnected people are from themselves, the more they rely on the crowd, and the more irrational the crowd becomes. History is full of examples. From the witch hunts of the Middle Ages to modern-day cancel culture, mass psychosis thrives when fear and groupthink override reason. Carl Jung saw this as a spiritual crisis as much as a psychological one. Without a sense of purpose or connection to something deeper, whether it's faith, philosophy, or personal truth, people become puppets of the collective. Anna, for instance, started feeling isolated because she couldn't join her co-workers' blind agreement. Carl Jung would say her isolation was a sign of her psyche resisting the collective trance. Here's the first lesson. Awareness is your shield. Carl Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." To escape mass psychosis, you must first recognize it. Notice when people around you, friends, family, or even strangers, seem to follow ideas without questioning. Ask yourself, are they thinking for themselves, or are they echoing the crowd? Are you? This awareness isn't about judging others. It's about protecting your mind from being swept away. But it's not enough to just see the problem. Carl Jung's work on individuation, the process of becoming your true self, shows that escaping mass psychosis starts with grounding yourself in your own truth. This means questioning what you hear, even if it's popular, and seeking meaning beyond the noise of the crowd. Anna began doing this by stepping back from social media and journaling about her own beliefs. She realized many of her opinions were shaped by what she thought she should believe, not what she truly understood. This small act of self-reflection was her first step toward mental sovereignty. In the next chapter, we'll break down the 4 stages of mass psychosis, showing how society spirals into madness and why it's so hard to break free. For now, reflect. Have you ever felt pressured to agree with something just because everyone else did? That's the collective unconscious at work. And recognizing it is your first act of rebellion. Stay with us. This journey is just beginning. Have you ever wondered how an entire society can go from rational to irrational? Seemingly overnight, Carl Jung's insights into the collective unconscious reveal that mass psychosis doesn't just happen, it unfolds in distinct stages, pulling people into a vortex of delusion and conformity. Understanding these stages is like having a map to navigate the chaos, helping you spot when society is slipping and, more importantly, how to stay grounded. In this chapter, we'll break down the 4 stages of mass psychosis disorientation: simplification, conformity, and aggression, and show how they trap even the sharpest minds. Through real-life stories, we'll see why this spiral is so hard to escape and how Carl Jung's wisdom can guide you out. Stage 1. Disorientation. The first stage begins with a sense of chaos. When society faces crises, economic collapse, cultural divides, or global uncertainty, People lose trust in institutions, leaders, or even reality itself. Carl Jung taught that this disorientation leaves the psyche vulnerable, craving order to make sense of the world. Without a personal anchor, like purpose or truth, people turn to the collective for answers. Take Mark, a 5-year-old teacher we met earlier. During a divisive election, he noticed his community unraveling. Friends stopped talking, families argued, and everyone seemed lost in a fog of fear. No one knew what to believe anymore, creating a perfect storm for mass psychosis to take hold. This stage is subtle but dangerous. It's the moment when critical thinking starts to waver. Stage 2: simplification, as disorientation grows. A simple narrative emerges to calm the chaos. Carl Jung warned that the collective unconscious loves clear stories, villains, heroes, and easy solutions that erase nuance. These narratives, often pushed by media or leaders, reduce complex problems to black and white terms. Think of Sarah, a 29-year-old journalist who saw this during a media frenzy over a public health issue. Headlines screamed about a single enemy to blame. Ignoring the issue's complexity, her colleagues, normally skeptical, bought into the narrative because it felt reassuring. Carl Jung would say this is the collective shadow at work, projecting fear onto a scapegoat to avoid facing deeper truths. Simplification is seductive because it promises certainty, but it's the gateway to delusion. Stage 3: conformity. Once the narrative takes hold, conformity kicks in. People don't always believe the story. They just think everyone else does. So they go along to avoid standing out. Carl Jung called this the surrender of the individual to the collective unconscious, where fear of isolation overrides reason. For example, Lisa, a 7-year-old college student, felt pressure to join a campus movement because everyone supported it. When she privately questioned its logic, she stayed quiet, fearing she'd be labeled a traitor. This is what psychologists call pluralistic ignorance. The majority may doubt the narrative, but stay silent, creating the illusion of consensus. Conformity doesn't just silence dissent, it buries it, making the collective madness seem unstoppable. Stage 4: aggression. The final stage is the most dangerous aggression. When the narrative becomes truth, those who question it are seen as threats. Carl Jung observed that societies gripped by mass psychosis turn on truth-tellers, using shame, ridicule, or even censorship to enforce conformity. Sarah, the journalist, experienced this when she wrote an article questioning the dominant narrative. Her inbox filled with hate mail, calling her a conspiracy theorist for simply asking for evidence. Her colleagues distanced themselves, not because they disagreed, but because challenging the crowd felt risky. Carl Jung would argue this aggression comes from the collective shadow's fear of exposure when the illusion is threatened. The crowd lashes out to protect it. These 4-stage: disorientation, simplification, conformity, and aggression form a cycle that traps societies in madness. Carl Jung's insight is clear. Mass psychosis thrives when individuals abandon their inner compass for the comfort of the crowd. But here's the hope. Recognizing these stages gives you power. You can spot when society is spiraling and choose not to follow. Mark, for instance, started questioning the election rhetoric by researching primary sources, refusing to parrot popular opinions. Lisa began speaking up in small ways, finding others who shared her doubts. Their small acts of resistance were steps toward individuation, Carl Jung's process of becoming a sovereign self. The lesson here is simple but profound. Mass psychosis only controls those who surrender their minds. By understanding its stages, You can see through the chaos and hold fast to your truth. Reflect on this. Have you seen these stages? Disorientation, simplification, conformity, or aggression in your own life or community? In the next chapter, we'll explore the heavy costs of going along with the crowd and why it's so dangerous to lose your inner voice. Stay with us. You're about to uncover the price of conformity and how to break free. Have you ever gone along with something just because everyone else did? Only to feel a quiet unease inside. That unease is your psyche's warning that you're surrendering to the crowd. A choice Carl Jung believed could cost you more than you realize. When you follow the collective in a state of mass psychosis, you don't just lose your perspective, you risk losing your identity, your health, and your connection to truth. In this chapter, we'll explore the devastating consequences of going along with the crowd, using real-life stories to show how it erodes your inner strength and why Carl Jung saw this as a spiritual crisis. By understanding these costs, you'll see why standing apart is not just brave, it's essential for your survival. First, let's talk about the loss of individuality. Carl Jung taught that mass psychosis thrives when individuals abandon their unique voice to blend into the collective unconscious. This surrender isn't just about agreeing with popular opinions, it's about giving up the process of individuation. Carl Jung's term for becoming your true, authentic self. When you conform to the crowd's narrative, you stop asking what you believe and start echoing what they believe. This erases the part of you that questions, dreams, and grows. Take Sarah, the journalist from Chapter 2. She noticed her colleagues blindly endorsing a trending narrative without evidence. At first, she stayed quiet to avoid conflict. But over time, she felt like she was losing herself, her curiosity, her skepticism, her passion for truth. Carl Jung would say Sarah was sacrificing her individuation to fit in, a cost that dims the soul's light. This loss of individuality leads to a deeper consequence, disconnection from reality. In mass psychosis, the crowd's narrative becomes a substitute for truth, creating a distorted version of the world. Carl Jung warned that when you outsource your perception to the collective, you stop trusting your own senses. For example, Mark, the teacher, saw his students adopt extreme views from social media, dismissing facts that didn't fit the group's story. When he tried to introduce evidence in class, they ignored it, not because they were unintelligent, but because the crowd's reality felt safer. Carl Jung would argue this disconnection is a form of psychic blindness. When you stop seeing the world for yourself, you become a prisoner of the collective's illusions. The emotional toll is just as heavy. Following the crowd often means suppressing your inner voice, which Carl Jung saw as a betrayal of the self. This suppression breeds anxiety, guilt, and even resentment. Consider Lisa, the college student from Chapter 2. She joined a campus movement to avoid being ostracized. But deep down, she doubted its cause. The more she silenced her doubts, the more anxious she became, feeling trapped in a role that wasn't hers. Carl Jung would say Lisa's anxiety was her psyche's protest against abandoning her truth. If you've ever felt restless or uneasy after going along with something you didn't believe in, that's your inner self, fighting to be heard. Ignoring it doesn't just hurt your mind, it can hurt your body too. That brings us to a surprising cost: physical health. Carl Jung believed that the psyche and body are deeply connected, and suppressing your individuality can manifest as physical symptoms. Chronic stress, fatigue, or even unexplained ailments can arise when you live in conflict with your true self. For instance, Anna, the office worker from Chapter 1, started having migraines after months of conforming to her co-workers' groupthink. She felt pressured to agree with their views, even when they clashed with her own. Her doctor found no physical cause, but Carl Jung would see this as her psyche crying out for authenticity. The body, he argued, becomes the voice for a soul that's been silenced. Have you noticed physical tension or exhaustion after suppressing your thoughts to fit in? That's a sign your psyche is paying the price. Perhaps the most dangerous cost is the hostility you face when you resist the crowd. Carl Jung observed that societies gripped by mass psychosis turn on those who question the narrative, labeling them as outsiders or enemies. Sarah faced this when her article challenging a popular narrative sparked backlash. Friends stopped talking to her, and online trolls called her dangerous for asking questions. This wasn't because her facts were wrong, it was because her voice threatened the collective's illusion. Carl Jung called this the collective shadow at work. When a group denies its own flaws, it projects them onto dissenters, making truth-tellers the scapegoats. This hostility can leave you feeling isolated, but Carl Jung would say that isolation is a sign you're reclaiming your sovereignty. The final cost is spiritual, a loss of meaning. Carl Jung saw mass psychosis as a crisis of the soul, where people trade their inner purpose for the false security of the crowd. When you follow the collective, you disconnect from what makes life meaningful, your values, your passions, your unique path. Lisa, for example, felt empty after months of conforming to her campus group. She realized she was living for their approval, not her own truth. Carl Jung would argue, this emptiness is the ultimate price of mass psychosis. You become a hollow vessel, echoing the crowd instead of radiating your own light. This spiritual void can lead to despair, as you lose the sense of purpose that Carl Jung believed is essential for a fulfilling life. So, what's the lesson? Going along with the crowd isn't just a harmless choice, it's a betrayal of your psyche that costs you your individuality, your connection to reality, your emotional and physical health, your safety, and your sense of meaning. Carl Jung's concept of individuation reminds us that true strength lies in standing apart. Even when it's uncomfortable, Sarah began reclaiming her voice by writing independently. Despite the backlash, Anna started journaling to reconnect with her beliefs, easing her migraines. These small acts of courage were steps toward breaking free from the crowd's grip. Reflect on this. Have you ever felt like you lost a piece of yourself by going along with the crowd? That's your psyche, urging you to resist. Carl Jung taught that the path to freedom starts with listening to your inner voice, no matter how quiet it seems. In the next chapter, we'll explore 3 practical steps inspired by Carl Jung to escape mass psychosis and live as a sovereign, awake individual. Stay with us. You're one step closer to reclaiming your truth. You've seen how mass psychosis engulfs societies, spiraling through disorientation, simplification, conformity, and aggression. And you've felt the heavy costs of following the crowd, losing your individuality, health, and sense of truth. But here's the good news. You're not powerless. Carl Jung's teachings offer a lifeline to escape the collective madness and reclaim your mind. In this chapter, we'll explore 3 practical steps inspired by Carl Jung to break free from mass psychosis, cultivating critical thinking, reconnecting with personal meaning, and building a community of truth seekers. Through real-life stories, we'll see how these steps can protect your psyche and help you live as a sovereign, awake individual. Let's dive in and discover how to rise above the chaos. Step 1. Cultivate critical thinking. Carl Jung believed that the antidote to mass psychosis begins with questioning the narratives around you. Critical thinking isn't just about doubting everything, it's about asking, why do I believe this? Who benefits from my belief? What's the evidence? This practice, rooted in Carl Jung's emphasis on making the unconscious conscious, helps you resist the collective's hypnotic pull. When you question assumptions, you reclaim your mind from the crowd's grip. Take David, a 4-year-old student who felt overwhelmed by social media debates. He noticed his friends blindly sharing viral posts without checking their sources. Caught in the simplification stage of mass psychosis, inspired by Carl Jung's call to confront the unconscious, David started a simple habit. Before reacting to a headline or post, he'd pause and research the primary source. One day, a trending story claimed a major crisis. But David dug deeper and found it was exaggerated. By questioning the narrative, he avoided the emotional frenzy his friends fell into. This small act of critical thinking gave him clarity and confidence. Try this. Next time you hear a popular opinion, ask yourself, what's the evidence behind this? Is it true? Or is it just loud? Start with one question a day. It's like a shield for your mind. Step 2. Reconnect with personal meaning. Carl Jung taught that mass psychosis thrives when people lose their sense of purpose, leaving them vulnerable to the collective unconscious. To escape, you must anchor yourself in something deeper, whether it's philosophy, spirituality, art, or nature. This connection to personal meaning acts like an inner compass, guiding you through the chaos of the crowd. Carl Jung called this individuation the journey to become your true self, free from external manipulation. Consider Anna, the office worker from Chapter 1. She felt drained by her co-workers' groupthink, constantly echoing the latest news without question. Feeling lost, Anna turned to Carl Jung's idea of finding meaning beyond the collective. She started meditating for 10 minutes each morning, reflecting on her values and what truly mattered to her. She also rediscovered her love for painting, which gave her a sense of purpose outside the noise of social media. Over time, Anna felt less swayed by her co-workers' opinions. As her inner world grew stronger, Carl Jung would say she was integrating her psyche, building a foundation that no crowd could shake. Try this. Set aside time each day for something that grounds you: journaling, prayer, or a walk in nature. Ask, what makes me feel alive? That's your anchor against the collective storm. Step 3. Build a community of truth seekers. Carl Jung warned that mass psychosis isolates those who resist it. But he also believed in the power of connection. Escaping the crowd doesn't mean living alone. It means finding others who value truth over conformity. A community of truth seekers, people who question, listen, and grow, can amplify your clarity and resilience. These aren't echo chambers of agreement, but spaces where critical thinking and open dialogue thrive. Let's meet Rachel, a 2-year-old graphic designer who felt alienated by her friend's blind allegiance to a trending cause. Inspired by Carl Jung's idea of conscious connection, Rachel sought out a book club focused on philosophy and psychology. There, she met people who weren't afraid to question popular narratives and valued evidence over emotion. These discussions gave her courage to speak her truth, even when it felt risky. One day, when her old friends mocked her for doubting a viral campaign, Rachel stayed calm, knowing she had a community that supported her clarity. Carl Jung would call this a circle of individuation, a group that strengthens your sovereignty rather than diluting it. Try this. Find one person or group who values truth over comfort. Whether it's a friend, an online forum, or a local meetup, share a question or idea you've been hesitant to voice. It's a step toward building your tribe. These 3 steps, cultivating critical thinking, reconnecting with meaning, and building a community of truth seekers, form a powerful framework to escape mass psychosis. Carl Jung's core insight is that mental sovereignty comes from within, but it's strengthened by conscious choices and connections. David's questioning saved him from emotional frenzy, Anna's meditation and art gave her a shield against groupthink. Rachel's community gave her the courage to stand firm. They didn't just survive the collective madness, they thrived by choosing their own path. But here's the challenge: breaking free isn't easy. Carl Jung warned that the crowd will resist your clarity, calling you cynical, rebellious, or even dangerous. David's friends rolled their eyes when he fact-checked their posts. Anna's co-workers called her weird for stepping back from their debates. Rachel faced mockery for questioning the crowd. Yet Carl Jung would say this resistance is proof you're on the right path. It means you're no longer a pawn of the collective unconscious. Stay strong. Your mind is your sanctuary, and protecting it is your sacred responsibility. Reflect on this. Which of these steps feels most urgent for you? Are you ready to question a narrative, reconnect with your purpose, or find your tribe? These actions aren't just about escaping mass psychosis. They're about becoming the awake, sovereign individual Carl Jung believed you could be. In our final chapter, we'll uncover Carl Jung's ultimate lesson for living free from the collective's grip, a revelation that could transform how you navigate the world. Stay with us. You're about to discover the power of your own truth. You've journeyed through the chaos of mass psychosis, from its hypnotic grip on society to the heavy costs of following the crowd. Carl Jung's wisdom has illuminated the 4 stages: disorientation, simplification, conformity, and aggression that pull us into collective madness, and shown you 3 powerful steps to escape critical thinking, reconnecting with meaning, and building a tribe of truth seekers. Now, it's time to rise above the noise, not as a follower of the crowd, but as a sovereign soul anchored in your own truth. Your mind isn't a pawn in the collective's game. It's a sanctuary, and you are its guardian. Imagine a version of yourself who questions fearlessly, lives with purpose, and walks your path with clarity, even when the world screams to conform. That's the power of individuation, Carl Jung's call to become your true self. Free from the collective's illusions, you're not just escaping mass psychosis, you're igniting a revolution of consciousness. One thought, one choice, one truth at a time. This is your moment to break free and shine as the awake individual you were born to be. So, what's your next step? Start today. Question 1 narrative. Spend 5 minutes reconnecting with what matters to you. Or reach out to someone who values truth over comfort. We want to hear from you. Which stage of mass psychosis have you seen in your life? What step will you take to protect your mind? Share your story in the comments below. We're building a community of truth seekers right here. If this video woke you up, hit that like button, subscribe to Young Psyche Hub, and tap the bell to never miss an insight that could change how you see the world. Check out our videos on facing your shadow or the power of solitude, links in the description. Your mind is your power. Guard it. Question it. Let it lead you to truth.